Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Staltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Since August, I think, of 2021, I have been teaching each fille du roi, or king's daughter, and getting to know their stories a little bit better. There are over 700 of them, so we have come a long way. We're on episode 188, but we do have a long way to go. But before we begin, I want to show you how you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know: subscribe, like, and notify. The other ways are ways that you can help the channel grow. Coffee, which is a separate platform, and I've put the link in. And we also have Patreon, where you can become a monthly subscriber. And also, we now have a super thanks that YouTube has permitted me to do once I achieved over 1,000 subscribers. So thank you to all of you who have been with me on this journey. So let's get started and get to know our fille du roi of this episode. So today's episode, 188, is Barbe Roteau. Now, according to some websites and organizations, she is no longer considered a fille du roi. However, I view her as a historical figure, and also she once was classified as a fille du roi. And I kind of base myself on Peter J. Gagne's listing of it. We know she existed. It's just that she is now declassified, if you will. It's like having a planet, no longer a planet, you know. But I'm still going to treat her the same way. It was a viewer request, and when I looked at my files, one of my very dear childhood friends also has her as a great grandmother. So let's get to know Barbe a little bit better. So Barbe caused me the most research angst because I tried to find Le Saint-Martin-le-Roule. I was not really that successful. I found out it was in the 8th arrondissement, what is now known as the 8th arrondissement. And as you know, Paris is laid out in circles. And her parents were Geoffrey Roteau and Catherine Casselot. And that is a picture of l'Arche de Triomphe, which is found in the 8th arrondissement. The Champs-Élysées is there as well. Now, the church of Saint-Philippe-le-Roule was, I believe, her parish church. And there's an picture, kind of an illustration of it in the middle of your screen. And then this is the current picture it was actually demolished by the king and then rebuilt in the 1800s. So anybody who can give me more information of Le Saint-Martin-le-Roule, I would be greatly, because I literally tore hair out trying to find some information on this. So if you can give me that insight, I'd be greatly appreciative. So we know she was born somewhere in Paris in the 8th arrondissement, we believe. And so let's see how her journey takes her to New France. So Barbe would actually sail on the last ship, September 3rd, 1673, appropriately called L'Espérance, which means the hope. And she carried with her a dowry worth about 200 pounds. Her father had passed, and it is likely that at that point she would want to start a new life. So the groom that she would select and who would select her, his name, Pierre Moisan. He was born in 1648 in Dieppe in the region of Normandy that you can see circled on the top left of your screen. And his parents were Jacques Moisan and Françoise Fontaine. Inside of Normandy region, he was found, his Dieppe is found in the Seine-Maritime département, they call it in France. And you can actually see Rouen is a very large city. On the bottom screen is, of course, a beautiful seaside that is Dieppe. And the picture here is the church where he would have been baptized, Saint-Remy. And it was built after 1522, replacing the 13th century building that had existed. As you can see, Dieppe is a city on the sea with its beginnings in 1030. It was a true jewel in the crown of both France and England, with its so many strategic locations. Many famous explorers and cartographers came from this area, and it is renowned for obviously its seafood, notably scallops. Throughout the Protestant wars of the Middle Ages, many Protestants, known as Huguenots, left from Dieppe to escape persecution and make new lives in the Americas. Now remember, she arrived in Quebec on September 3rd. She was married September 11th. Unbelievable. And there is the marriage record that exists. and was married at Quebec City at Notre Dame. So they would settle down in Quebec City. Let's review a little bit about it. It is the capital city of the province of Quebec. 500,000 people live directly in Quebec City. It was originally named by the Algonquins, who named the area Quebec, K-E-B-E-C, which in their native language meant where the river narrows. Quebec City lies where the St. Lawrence River narrows. It was actually founded by Samuel Champlain in 1608 and called Ville de Québec, or Quebec City. The city walls, which surround it still, date back to this time period. So you can actually see that when you visit, making Quebec City the only city with remaining city walls north of Mexico, actually. Um, and now I always like to look at, some of the buildings or things that they would have seen at that time. And the Maison Jacquette, which is the oldest surviving private residence, it dates from 1675. And if you'd like to tour it, it's home to a famous restaurant, appropriately called Aux Anciens Canadiens, which roughly translated to our old Canadians or to our historic Canadians. And then we also have the Petit Champlain, which is it claims to be the oldest commercial district in North America. And here are a few, depictions of Quebec City, an old style map. So this is where they made their home and began their family. So they would go on to have 10 children. Marie-Madeleine would pass away in infancy. Jean, we do not know his death date, but we know that we don't have any other information. Marie-Charlotte would marry Jean Coton and have 2 children, both of whom would make it. Marie-Madeleine, the second one, would tragically drown at age 14. Pierre would pass away at 17. François, we have no information, but we assume he also passed away. Michel would marry Thérèse Bonhomme and have 8 children, all of whom would make it. Louise Barbe would marry Jean-Baptiste Routier and have 3 children, all of whom would make it. Geneviève would marry Joseph Lucien Poitras and have 12 children, 8 of whom would make it. Joseph Lucien's mother was a fille du roi, who we featured in episode 141. Her name was Marie Sainte-Vie de la Motte. Etienne would marry Anne-Félicite Bonhomme and have 9 children, all of whom would make it. And yes, Anne-Félicite is the sister of Thérèse Bonhomme, whom Michel married. So that's always interesting to know. Then we have the 1681 census, where we have Pierre Moisan and Barbe Roteau. This is the only census they're listed on. We have their children at that time, Jean, Marie, Madeleine. They have 1 gun, 1 cow, and 6 enfants malades. So Pierre would pass away December 7th, 1693. He was but 52 years old. He and Barbe were married a mere 20 years. As is so typical in New France, one man dies and another arrives. Let's see who arrives to continue her life's journey. So his name was Jacques Renaud. He was born in 1646 in La Rochelle, France. His parents were Vincent Renaud and Marie Martin. Let's talk a little bit about La Rochelle. As you can see, it's part of the region of France known as Nouvelle-Aquitaine, and inside that, the département is Charente-Maritime. La Rochelle was founded during the 10th century and became an important harbor in the 12th. Until the 15th century, La Rochelle was to be the largest French harbor on the Atlantic coast, dealing mainly in wine, salt, and cheese. The name of La Rochelle was first recorded in 961 as a rupella, which meant, in Latin, little rock. La Rochelle has one of the richest histories of all the towns of France, from its beginnings as an area where the Knights of Templar had their strongest base. Eleanor of Aquitaine married Henry Plantagen in 1152, who would become king of years later as Henry II, and had thus put La Rochelle under Plantagenet rule, until Louis VIII captured it in the 1224 siege of La Rochelle. During the Plantagen control of the city, sometime in 1185, Henry II had the Vauclair castle built, remains of which are still visible in the Place de Verdun. From 1568, La Rochelle became the center for Huguenots. It was in La Rochelle that the Protestant revolutions occurred and created the uprisings that would become known as the Siege of La Rochelle. Throughout the 1600s, the Huguenots were expelled from La Rochelle. Now, Jacques had previously been married to another Fille du Roi, who we have yet to feature, and he had 4 children. But on October 24th, the widow and the widower were married in Quebec City, October 24th, 1695. They would go on to have another child together. Marie-Angélique Renaud would marry Thomas Doyon and have 15 children, 7 of whom would make it. Jacques would pass away December 23rd, 1708, and he was buried the same day in Quebec City. So this tells us that he probably was a victim of the epidemics that were going on at that time, because generally speaking, when you bury the body that same day, that's an indication that they needed to make sure that it didn't spread. Barbe would go on to live another 20 years, dying on August 25th, 1728. She was 75 years old, and she would go on to have, by 1729, 64 descendants. She is buried in L'Ancienne Lorette, which I believe probably is where one of her children, she may have been living with one of her children at that time. So for more information about Pierre Moisin and also Barbe, I'm going to introduce you to the Facebook group that is searching for our French-Canadian ancestors. It's an amazing group, and inside that it has information and the files from our French-Canadian Ancestors book by Thomas J. Laforêt that you can get more information on. So check that out. I've put the link for you to have to go and join, and you will see it is an amazing Facebook page. And now we have some of my favorite resources: La Société des Filles du Roi. We have the Quebec Genealogical Society, Nos Origines, Wikitree. Don't ever forget about Wikitree. Facebook Filles du Roi Descendants, an amazing website. La Société d'Histoire des Filles du Roi and Genealogy Quebec. I've listed all of the links. I use these on an almost daily basis to check things and verify. So please have a look at those resources for you. Didn't Barb have a remarkable life? I think she did. And yes, she may have been declassified as a fille du roi, but I think that her perseverance and her longevity and her ability to come to New France on that last boat and make the best of it, and I suspect the reason that she has 64 descendants is because she got the latest start. So I suspect that there are a lot of descendants of Barbe, and I can't wait to hear from you all. And I also want to make sure that I put a shout out to all my patrons and supporters. I couldn't do this without you. Your letters of support, your donations, all of that just warms my heart, and thank you so much. So with that, we will say goodbye to Barbe in episode 188. We want to thank Barbe for her incredible dedication to New France and her family and her sacrifices. And we want to bless her memory and tell her that she is not forgotten. And with that, I bid you adieu and au revoir until episode 189.